So, look, I don't have a problem standing up to somebody who was, working on season 7 of Celebrity Apprentice when I was packing my bags for Afghanistan. But at the end of the day, it's not about him.
Do you have a question? Do you think he should have served in Vietnam?
Well, I have a pretty dim view of his decision to use his privileged status to fake a disability in order to avoid serving in Vietnam.
You believe he faked a disability?
Do you believe he has a disability? Yeah. Yeah. At least not that one. No, I don't mean to. No, this is actually really important because I don't mean to trivialize disability, but I think that's exactly what he did.
A stinging rebuke of the president from Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who seems to have solidified his place among the upper tier of the Democratic candidates. The latest Monmouth poll out today has him in 5th place behind Biden and Sanders and a pair of surging Democrats, Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, who are both now in double digits. The table's back. Let me just say that was your colleague, Robert Costa, our colleague as well, who did a tremendous job. That was a tremendous event, tons of news. But there, right there, might have been sort of that how hard can he go if Democrats want to know how hard their choices can go at Donald Trump.
That was hard.
That's as hard as you can go at Donald Trump.
That was hard. That was Afghanistan hard.
That was
he went
disability,
hard.
Not that disability.
No, he connected those dots. Those dots have been there, right? And everybody's written about him, and that's what you take away from what actually happened with Trump. But there's something about coming out and saying it forcefully. Yeah, he faked it. He faked the bone spurs, and that's how he got out of serving in Vietnam. I mean, boom.
I have said this before. I think that all of the Democratic candidates are getting better week after week after week after week. Buttigieg is the most gifted political communicator on the field.
He knew right where to go to hurt Trump the most, because I've been thinking about this. He's not the first person to actually go there on Vietnam with Trump. It was Bob Kerrey, the former senator, who said, "You had bone spurs? Let's see the MRI."
I remember
Did you
that.
really have bone spurs?
CNN, yeah.
Yeah, and this is something that, Trump's whole image is about fighting the elite. And somehow we, the media, who come from normal middle-class families, have become the elite. But that aside, this is the ultimate betrayal of that, is that he used his privileged status as an official, as the favorite son of the New York elite, to avoid the draft if he really didn't have a disability, and he trivialized it and gamed the system like that. And who are the guys who did have to go? Yeah. The guys who did have to go are a lot of the guys who supported him, a lot of the white working class guys who today live off Social Security and pensions that they had to work hard for after they came back, possibly with real disabilities, from serving.
Right. No, it's an intelligent and an emotional gut message delivery. And here he is on race.
Is President Trump a racist?
I think so. I mean, if you do racist things and say racist things, the question of whether that makes you a racist is almost academic. The problem with the president is that he does and says racist things and gives cover to other racists. I mean, it's not an accident that hate crimes rose disproportionately in places that his campaign visited, which, by the way, is another reminder of why it is the conduct of our campaigns, not just their outcome, that can affect what happens in this country. There's no question, without having to examine his heart, there's no question that we have to respond to the racism that is emanating from this White House.
And it reminds me of a moment Todd Gilliam had, who ran against DeSantis. Andrew Gilliam had, who ran for governor of
Florida, and
where he said,
I'm not saying that you're a racist.
I'm not saying you're a racist.
The racists are saying that you're a racist, correct.
That his opponent, now the governor of Florida. But it's the same kind of, I don't have to settle out for you whether or not I think Trump's a racist. The racists think he's with them.
And it shows that all of the candidates, not just the candidates of color, have to address the fact that this is often an elephant in the room when we're talking about the landscape for 2020. There is this persistent focus, and even more more so now that Joe Biden is in the race, on these white, working class, Midwestern state folks. And at the same time, hate crimes are rising. The disparity in, despite what the president says, the disparity, economic disparities between blacks and other minorities is still persistent. There are a lot of problems, and all of the candidates are going to have to speak to that. The majority of the Democratic electorate are people of color and people in marginalized communities, and they have to say specifically how the Trump administration has affected them and why that is a reason for voters to vote for them. Pete Buttigieg has been lagging when it comes to minority support, and I think he realizes that, and he knows how to, just as directly as he, as a veteran, talked about the president's past military record or lack thereof, he has to just as directly get to the nub when he's talking about issues of race in this country.
I think that's exactly right, and I do think it is, the president has nowhere to go. I mean, the facts are now established. And when Joe Biden raised this in his opening announcement video, President's instinct, we've been talking about his instinct and his impulse was to relitigate Charlottesville for 10 days.
Right. He defended his remarks, saying there are good people on both sides. That's right. Blaming both sides for the violence that claimed the life of a person who was there to protest racism, to protest white nationalists. I was also struck by the comment there from Mayor Pete Buttigieg. It's the exact same structure he used when he was asked about Mike Pence, whether he was homophobic, and he said, well, I don't know that he is, but his policies and things he advocates for are. And I think that it's showing a pretty adept way of attacking this administration. And we were just talking before the break, you raised the point that it was Joe Biden whose opening words were about Charlottesville. Seemed to almost sort of light a fire under some of these Democrats who, prior to this, had been reluctant to go right after Trump. They were certainly campaigning against things he stood for and some of his policies, but they didn't necessarily go after his character. And what I think we're seeing here is that's changed now. And the Democrats, we're still a long way from the election, but they seem far less reluctant to go after Donald Trump, the man, not just Donald Trump, the president.
Women surging in this poll. Kamala Harris up 3, Elizabeth Warren up 4, Amy Klobuchar up 2. I think this is because they're running really good campaigns. I mean, I think that Harris had a moment with Barr. She wrote it. She's taken it to the campaign trail. She was putting down some of the bricks for a campaign. She's now sort of turned on a more public-facing phase of her campaign. And I've said it before, Elizabeth Warren is as effective as anyone in this field as a communicator and a messenger around policies that the Democratic base is starving for.
She's been grinding it out in terms of the policy, really distinguishing herself. She's also been investing in major field operations in New Hampshire, in Iowa. And I think now that they are getting more time with the news stations and coverage in a lot of these communities, the polls are showing that this is a really competitive race, and they are in that second tier now solidly. They're going to make the debate stage. And I don't think that we're going to see much more movement, though I may be wrong, but I don't think we're going to see a ton of movement until after that first debate. And I wouldn't say this is anything to do with their gender. It's just that by virtue of, like you said, the fact that they are owning their policies and they're connecting with voters in those states.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.